Welcome to Your Family's Health, the program that focuses on healthcare issues with unique and different modalities for taking charge of your health today. Experts talk weekly with our continuing roster of guests from around the country and right here in Nassau County to keep you up to date on the latest health issues and trends. Take care of your mind, body, and soul. Spend the next half hour with the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC, and get on the journey to better health.
Hello and welcome to Your Family's Health. My name is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard from the nursing department here at Nassau Community College. And today we're going to learn about a condition called Leaky Gut Syndrome and talk with David Meine, who not only survived bladder cancer and other serious health challenges, but suffers with this condition that was causing inflammation that leads to a compromised immune system. David is also author of Eating to Live, Unlocking the Leaky Gut Code. David, welcome to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm excited to be on your program today.
Well, it's great to have you. So I'm hearing that you're first generation college graduate and you started your own business while attending college. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So it was a lot of fun. I was going to school. I didn't realize at the time that I was going to become a serial entrepreneur. And while attending college, I was working for an electronics company. And I found as I was managing two of their stores and going to school full time that there was a bunch of things that they didn't do and they weren't interested in doing. So I got the bright idea of doing the things that they didn't do it. And I did it on the side out of, our apartment. And anyway, the owner of the company found out and he looked at me and said, "David, this is a conflict of interest." And I said, "How would that be a conflict of interest?" Because he said, "Well, we might get into these other things someday." And he says, "So I'm going to have to fire you," which was the best thing because then I seriously got into the business and I built 110 retail stores in 28 states from 1980 to 1988. And then I sold that company, my first one.
Awesome. That sounds fantastic. So now tell me about your health ordeal. I'm hearing that you're still in your 60s?
Yeah, I'm 65.
Okay. And you're very athletic.
Yes.
So how did it come to, and when were you diagnosed with cancer?
Just go back a little bit. So while I was going in college and as a teenager, I had a lot of issues with my stomach, a lot of bloating, gas, constipation. I mean, there'd be times I'd be curled up in the fetal position. I was in so much pain and, I was trying to do things, Pepto-Bismol, and it just got more and more serious. And then I started working with a doctor and he diagnosed me after doing a colonoscopy that I had colitis. And then 10 years later, a different doctor diagnosed me with Crohn's disease. And then in 1999, I had chronic pain in my feet and found out that I had peripheral neuropathy. And so I started on medication for that. So I had the stomach issues, I had the pain issues in my feet. And then in 2014, I had my first of 3 back surgeries. And in the spring of 2016, as I was recovering from that October 30th, I had my S1, L5, L4 fused. And as I was going through that incredibly intensive recovery, I had a symptom. And in January, I had blood in my urine for one day. And I thought, not knowing any better, I just thought it was part of the healing process from the back surgery. Then it happened again in February, just one day, again in March. And I just was naive. And then in April of 2015, for 3 days, I had solid bleeding. And I asked my wife, I said, "Do you think this is something I should be concerned about since I'm recovering from this back surgery?" And she got really upset with me and said, "You get down right now to the doctor's office and let's figure out what's going on." And so I got to the doctor's office. They ran some tests. They said I did not have an infection, which was bad news. And so they sent me to a urologist. I got to the urologist in a couple of days. And what was interesting, that was on a Tuesday. And he said, "You more than likely have bladder cancer. I'm putting you in surgery tomorrow." And so when we went into the surgery, they found 3 large tumors, cancerous tumors that were embedded in the bladder wall. And so they removed those. Lucky, I was so lucky. It hadn't gone through the bladder wall. It becomes what's called transitional bladder cancer. And basically you become the walking dead. It's just a matter of time because there's less than 1% that survive that cancer. I had 2 more surgeries over the next 18 months. I had additional of 18 tumors. I ended up having to do 2 rounds of chemo. And so I started recovering from all that in 2017. And then 2018, I started this journey of learning about a leaky gut.
So leaky gut, tell me what it is and the connection with the bladder cancer and the leaky gut, and if there is a connection.
If you get cancer, more than likely you have a compromised immune system. So we'll back up and we'll talk about the small intestine. Inside the small intestine, there's this villi, these finger-like, that if you can picture the inside of your small intestines like a shag carpet. So these villi are long, and their job is to have tight junctions, and they only allow the nutrients to go through the small intestine into the bloodstream and then feed the whole body. Well, in my case, as the years go on and we eat this really bad this American diet that's unhealthy, we trim down. In my case, I kept trimming that down to where it now became like a Berber. And so my wife is a certified functional nutrition coach. So she went to school while I was writing this book about my health journey in leaky gut. And so she's the one that taught me about this analogy of the shag carpet, the Berber. And what happens is we get these compromised junctions that open up. And so food particles, bacteria, poop gets through the small intestine, gets into the blood. Then the immune system, my wife likens it to the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, all of the Coast Guard, all of these armed forces now are attacking these foreign substances that are not supposed to be in the bloodstream. And what that ends up doing is causing inflammation. And if that inflammation is long enough and severe enough, you get a compromised immune system. So because unfortunately there was foods that I was eating that I shouldn't have been eating, and all of the sugar, and then I found out I had an intolerance to gluten, all of these things were getting through. And so I had 30 foods that we found out that I had going through that intestinal wall, like salmon, eggs, peas, things that for whatever reason I had these sensitivities to. And so what happened is let me liken it this way. Every one of us have cancer cells in our body every day. If you have a healthy immune system, it just takes those and destroys them and gets rid of them. In my case, because I had a compromised immune system from all this inflammation, plus the doctors had me on 10 different drugs, I just had all these interactions. And so I just was super sick. I had severe arthritis in my left knee, my left hand, my right knee, my left hand, all the way up and down my spine. And then the worst thing was the brain fog. And so that kind of will, I hope, give you kind of a simple explanation of what leaky does and what it causes in your body.
So how did you find out what your food sensitivities were?
So we have worked with some really outstanding doctors. So one of the doctors we worked with is Dr. Tom O'Brien. And Dr. Tom O'Brien is a leading expert on leaky gut. And so we did what's called these, what is the name? Anyway, there's 11 different tests. And what they do is they take categories of food. So dairy, wheat, nuts. They're called Zoomers. Sorry about that. It slipped my mind for a second. So I did these Zoomers, and then it comes back, and then you work with this PA. And so when the reports came back, which is 186 pages from my blood work, showed that I had a leaky gut, showed that I had a food sensitivity, salmon, there was a bunch of nuts, rice, different things that had lectins in them. And so so you have two things you can do. So your audience, if they're having a challenge with their health, they can be an abstainer, where they just don't do that anymore, or they can be a moderator. So in my case, I had to become an abstainer and stop eating those 30 foods, cut out sugar, cut out dairy, cut out gluten. And so from 2018, July, with those 10 medications and all the inflammation and everything I was dealing with, by the time I got to October of 2020, I was off all 10 medications, and a lot of that was for chronic pain. What was so amazing, even with all those medications, Lyrica, Cymbalta, Loratab, the NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, I was still dealing from an 8 to a 10 with pain every day, as far as a level, 10 being the highest. October of 2020, when I got off that last drug, I was experiencing anywhere from a 0 to a 1 every day. So by taking out certain foods, increasing the good foods, getting rid of unhealthy beverages, really focusing on just drinking water, all I can say is I'm a walking miracle.
Wow. So what exactly do you eat? You mentioned that you no longer eating sugar, gluten, and the probably 30 foods that you're sensitive to. So
Right.
Give me a little brief of what you eat during the course of a day.
So the good news is I did the Zoomers again. And so last April, so I'm getting ready to do the Zoomers again. But anyway, I did my second panels of Zoomers. In April, I'd gone from 30 down to 16 food sensitivities. And I'm really hoping when I do my Zoomers again here in April that I've pretty much cleared everything up. Because once you heal that leaky gut and you get it healthy again, and those they grow back like the way they're supposed to be, I should be able to introduce a lot of those things, but I'll be a moderator at that point, right? And so the thing is I track my food every day, I track my pain level every day, and I track my bowel movements every day. And if I get an increase in pain at all, or my bowel movements aren't correct, then I look at the food and make adjustments. So 3/4 of my plate is vegetables. So my wife and I have created 108 recipes that are dairy-free, gluten-free, sugar-free. So I eat lots of really amazing desserts, and we serve these to our family and friends, and we don't tell them. Like, we have this amazing pudding, we have these amazing carrot cakes, and we don't tell them that they're sugar-free, gluten-free, dairy-free, and we just watch people's reactions, and they're just like, man, this is awesome. This is such good food. I eat about 4 to 6 ounces of meat a day. I did try to be a vegetarian, but my particular genetics needs meat.
Mine too.
And so we eat meat that's grass-fed, doesn't have hormones.
Right.
And we do a lot of soups. We have an Instapot, and we do lots of, broccoli soup or mushroom soup. And so I really eat like a king, but I'm very particular on what I eat. And when we go out to restaurants, I just look for things that, that aren't cooked in bad oil. So everything we cook is in either olive oil or a coconut oil or an MCT oil or an avocado oil. So we do the healthy oils, and we really limit the sugars. I do dark chocolate for the antioxidants, but I moderate the dark chocolate. There's just so many good things to eat. And so we've created lots of healthy recipes that people can do if they want to really improve their health.
So you also believe that sustainable weight loss begins and ends with the gut. So
Exactly.
have you lost weight since you have addressed this leaky gut?
Yeah. And, it's never been about weight loss. What it's been about is, how can I live longer with optimal health? I don't want to grow older, because a lot of people, when you say I'm growing older, they just accept dementia or arthritis or, taking all these medications that have all these interactions. My thing has been, there's got to be a way. So let me share with you my why that I want to live longer with optimal health. My wife and I got married 20 years ago, and we blended 2 families together. We have 7 kids, 18 grandkids. My number one why for creating optimal health for myself is I want to celebrate my 50th wedding anniversary with my wife, which means I'll be 95 years old. I want to be lucid and I want to be able to dance with my wife because we love to dance.
Wow.
And so that's my overarching why of how come I'm so focused on this optimal health.
I mean, I think that should be everybody's goal, right? To be able to be lucid at 95. So you talked about a full year's resolution instead of traditional New Year's resolution. Talk to me about that and why you choose those words.
So we do every Monday at 10 o'clock Mountain Daylight Time on our social media, we do a tip. And so one of the things that we try to get people to understand is, since 2018, we've made a lot of small steps to get where we're at today. So we have a model we've had to change our company name. We still have the book, Eating to Live. We just recently did a pivot and changed our company name to morethanhealthy.com. And so we are making a transition because a doctor was not happy with us using the Eating to Live name in our company. And so to not, get into litigation, we decided that we changed to More Than Healthy. And we have this model. And the model is we have a foundation, find your why. The next part of the foundation is sleep. And then we have 6 pillars. And then the roof is optimal health. And so what we wanted to do over this next year is really help people understand little small steps that they could take. So one of the tip we just did last night or Monday was reducing sugar, because sugar creates so much inflammation in the body and it creates such inflammation in the brain. And if you're trying to get healthy, then you've really got to cut down that inflammation. And to go back to the question that I didn't quite finish, this inflammation is so bad in our bodies that we really have to figure out how to decrease our sugar. Right now, the average American, as of the 2010 American Nursing Association did a study, the average American right now, we eat 130 pounds of sugar. So when I decreased sugar, when I took out the gluten and these 30 food sensitivities, I went from 210 pounds, kind of my average weight, to like this morning, I weighed 177 pounds, which is the same weight I was in high school. And I was very athletic in high school. So your body will right size as you get healthy. And so we're doing all these tips. We've done, drink more water. We did a one on sleep. We've got one coming up on the river of sweat. And we have these 52 weeks of tips for people to think about and how they can try. And then we do a lot of work on the brain and how to deal with thoughts and the shame that comes with either our body size or our poor health. And so we coach individuals on that. And we hope through the year we'll be able to, with these 52 weeks tips of this full year of resolutions, that we can really give people some great ideas that we have found that has really helped us achieve our optimal health.
You're listening to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard, and today we're learning about a condition called Leaky Gut Syndrome and talking with David Meine, who not only survived bladder cancer and other serious health challenges, but suffers with this condition that was causing inflammation that led to compromised immune system. David is also an author of Eating to Live, Unlocking the Leaky Gut Code. So, David, this question comes up all the time, and I know that you have addressed this in your book. You're suggesting that people stop relying on over-the-counter medications or over-the-counter, things that they may pick up at CVS or Walgreens, or even prescribed medications. What do you mean by that, and why should we?
Okay, so first off, I want to be very clear. You should always work with your doctor on any over-the-counter or prescription medicine that you're taking. I am lucky. One of my other doctors is Dr. Stephen Gundry, who's a very famous, he used to be a cardiologist, worked on hearts, and changed his practice to restorative medicine. Dr. Gundry is who I've worked with to get off of all 10 of these medications. So I did this all under doctor's care. And Dr. Gundry, Dr. Tom O'Brien, Dr. Terry Wall, and other doctors have worked with me to learn and understand that I had this leaky gut, and that by changing my diet and working on my sleep and working on these other pillars in optimal health, that I could get off of all 10 of these medications. The challenge is doctors are amazing, but they've been trained. They get very little education on nutrition, and they've been trained to look at symptoms, which we're very grateful for. But typically what they always do is they prescribe a medication. And typically the medication covers what the real problem is. And for the majority of us, it could be just as simple as removing certain foods. Or we have this leaky gut syndrome, which is becoming every day more and more. Doctors are beginning to acknowledge leaky gut, but it takes 18 years typically for a new diagnosis to be accepted, and all the research and the education. And these doctors are amazing in what they do in their practices. But my point is we need to take charge and be our own advocates, and advocates for others in our family that are struggling with their health. And we need to always question, a medication should always be for the short term and not be a long-term solution unless we have a genetic issue, right? That, a malformed heart or something in the brain or something physically. But a lot of things are caused because we have this gut that's been compromised, and then it compromises our immune system.
How prevalent do you think leaky gut is, particularly in the United States?
Most of the doctors I talk to say that it's a huge percentage of our population, because did you know that sugar is hidden in the nutritional fact panel? Do you want me to explain that? Do we have a minute? If not,
sure. Go ahead.
Can pass on that.
No, absolutely. Go ahead and explain it.
The problem is when you look at a fact panel on a processed food or any kind of beverage, what you do is you look at, as you go down of all the things and you get down to carbohydrates, carbohydrates have sugar in them. So when you go down underneath carbohydrates, you'll see fiber and then you see sugars. Anything that shows in that sugar is an added sugar. It doesn't talk about the carbohydrates that have the sugars in them. So Dr. Gundry, for example, said, okay, let's look at this particular food that you like, David. And it had 8 grams of sugar, which is pretty high. That's a struggle for me. But then we looked at the carbohydrates, and there was 30 carbohydrates. He said, David, take the carbs minus the fiber, then divide by 4. Which would be a little over 7. He says that's 7 teaspoons of additional sugar that are not shown in this label. And so for that particular label, it was almost 16 grams of sugar, which is a tremendous amount of sugar. And when you look at someone like me that used to be a sugarholic, I still count myself as a sugarholic. That's why I have to abstain from sugar because of my body and my brain and the addiction I have and what it does to my brain. I have to cut that out, which is cut out the inflammation, and that's why I'm a walking miracle.
So what do you do to replace the sugars? You mentioned that you make desserts. Do you use dates? Do you use raisins, natural sugars?
So we do some of that, but you still have to moderate those. So we use like stevia. So we use plant-based sugars that are really good. And so like I make a killer granola. And so I use gluten-free grains, and then I put in pumpkin seeds, dark chocolate, little chips. It's got cinnamon, and I use Swerve brown sugar because it measures the same as granulated sugar. And so I make a really killer granola. We use those same products. We use monk fruit to flavor. I also put raisins in my granola. So you can really make really tasty, healthy desserts. But you do have, with some of this, you do have to do acquired taste. You do change your taste buds.
Right. So although you're using the monk fruit and the stevia, does the body recognize it? Is it still the body stimulated in a way that it still responds as though it's sugar? Or does it respond differently because it is a stevia or monk fruit?
It does change because you don't get the release in the brain like you would get with sugar.
Oh, the sugar.
So the release in your brain and what it does in your body is different. And so you train your brain, change your body with those sugar substitutes that are so much more healthy.
Come from natural sources.
Yep.
So you mentioned you have grandchildren and children. So your grands come over and they want a piece of candy. What does Grandpa say?
Grandpa says no, but Grandma says, it's okay. Let's be moderators here. She wants them to come back to our house.
Right.
That's a tough one. We just try to lead by example, but at the same time, you can't control anybody else. All you can do is work on your own optimal health, and then just set an example, and that's what we do.
So what is your book and how can we get a copy? How can we look at the website? Tell us about your...
So the book's available on Audible or Amazon. They can go to eatingtolive.com.
You said you had a company. Do you sell products or is it the book that you're
So
selling?
We sell the book and we're actually shifting right now to coaching. And so I'm actually in school right now to become a certified life coach. My wife's a certified functional nutrition counselor. And so we're going to more of a coaching model where we can help people because a lot of our struggles with our health start in our brain. Mm-hmm. And so I am actually a brain trainer. And so we're moving more and more to that kind of content this next year.
So what is the one thing you want to leave us with when it comes down to leaky gut syndrome?
It's not worth it. When I look at those 30 foods and I look at the sugar and I look at the gluten and I remember back on how much chronic pain and all the health issues and everything, and I look at where I'm at today by taking these small steps. And so when I go to a party or I'm at friends or I'm wherever and I'm getting offered foods that will cause me inflammation and cause bad health, I just smile, I say thank you, but it's not worth it. I am not going to go back to that bad health that I experienced. And so I love life and I love where I'm at right now.
Thank you for being here, David Meine, author of Eating to Live, Unlocking the Leaky Gut Code. We hope you stay safe and continue to stay healthy. And thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you so much for the time, the great questions, and it's been a pleasure to be with you.
This is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard from the nursing department here at Nassau Community College, and we want to thank you for listening to this week's edition of Your Family's Health.
We'd like to get your feedback on your family's health. Send your comments by emailing them to whpc@ncc.edu. Podcasts of today's show are available on iTunes, Android Podcasts, and Spreaker. This program was produced at the studios of Nassau Community College in cooperation with the nursing department. Join us next week for another edition of Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.